I have discovered the ultimate Solana airdrop strategy, where if you follow these exact steps, you can qualify for 4 Solana ecosystem airdrops all in one. And if you want to be even more degen, then you can actually add on a 5th airdrop as well. And so in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the exact process and explain how you need to approach each step to maximize your airdrops. Now, bottom line up front, the 4 or 5 airdrops that you can qualify for with this strategy are Stake City, or the City token. Then there's Sol Blaze, or the Blaze token. We've also got the Jito token, and I know they already released an airdrop, but bear with me on this one. Then we've got the Kamino token and a MarginFi airdrop as well if you want to take this to the maximum level of risk. So how does this 4 or 5 in 1 airdrop strategy work? Well, basically what you're going to want to do is stake some Sol tokens with Sol Blaze, but you're going to direct them specifically to the Stake City validator. And by doing just that first step, you're already going to qualify for the ongoing Blaze airdrop as well as the Stake City airdrop. But then we're going to take those BSOL tokens and we're going to lend them out on Kamino Finance. And by doing that, we're already qualifying for a Kamino airdrop. Now, the next step, if you want to go full degen, is to borrow against the BSOL, lend it out on MarginFi, and then borrow Jito Sol against that, bring it back to Kamino, and then we're going to deposit it into a liquidity pool where we can earn up to 140% APY because it's currently incentivized for a short period of time with Jito tokens. And so if you do all of those different steps, you're going to qualify for City token, Blaze token, Jito token, Kamino, and MarginFi, all with one pool of money, one capital investment. So let's walk through this now, and I'll show you how to actually complete each step, and I'll discuss some of the risks and some things that you need to avoid, because if you're not careful here, you could run into some issues. So for starters, you do not want to go to the Stake City page and stake your tokens natively with them. Well, I mean, you can, and you'll qualify for a City airdrop that way, but then you won't be able to complete the rest of the steps in this strategy. So what you actually want to do is go to the Sol Blaze application, and I'll throw a link to this down below, and you can stake Sol tokens for BSOL on their homepage. But you don't want to just do that. You want to go up here where it says Custom Validators, click that, and then in the search bar, search for Stake City. Because when you delegate tokens to BSOL, you can actually choose a specific validator. And if you click on the website tab, you can see that it is actually the same Stake City. So go back to the Sol Blaze page and hit stake, and then it's going to bring you to the staking page where it specifically supports Stake City plus MEV. So if we stake our Sol tokens here, we're going to get the same old BSOL that you would get, but you're also going to be directing that to the Stake City validator, which is going to qualify us for the City airdrop as well. So then at this point, it's the same steps. You just select an amount of Sol tokens that you want to stake, and then you hit on the stake button, and it's going to pop up in your wallet asking you to confirm the transaction. Now, if you run into an issue or an error here, try just refreshing the page or closing the browser and clearing your cache and trying again. Because when I first tried to do this, it wasn't letting me mint the BSOL tokens with the Stake City validator, but then I came back the next day and it worked just fine. So confirm the transaction in your wallet. Now, if you open up your wallet, it just groups that BSOL with all of the other BSOL that you have. So it doesn't distinguish it in your wallet, but the amount that you staked to support the Stake City validator will qualify you for the City airdrop. Because if we go back to the Stake City page here, under the liquid stake section, you can see that if we click on this little icon, it pops up and shows us that liquid stake directed to Stake City validator provides you with points. But the rewards for doing this are not reported directly in the Stake City dashboard, because I guess they only have functionality for people that natively stake with Stake City. But not to worry, we now have BSOL. We are directing it towards the Stake City validator, and we can take that and use it to qualify for the next couple of airdrops on our list. And I'm actually going to stake a little bit more. I just need to make sure that I leave enough Solana tokens in my wallet to pay for transaction fees. So let's go ahead and stake 0.15 extra, and then we'll move to the next step. All right, so that is 2 airdrops out of the way. We've got Stake City and Blaze covered, and the Blaze rewards are ticking up just for staking with them and holding BSOL tokens. But now we're going to want to move to Kamino Finance. So the next step in this strategy is to lend out the BSOL tokens that we just staked to Kamino. I've already lent some to the platform here, but if you haven't, there's an option to just scroll down, select the asset that you want to supply to, and hit on the supply button. And if you've already got a position open, you can just hit on these 3 little dots here and then click supply and add to the position. So I'm going to go ahead and add 0.5 BSOL to my Kamino Finance lending position, hit deposit, and then confirm the transaction in my wallet. If this is the first time you've ever made a deposit on Kamino Finance, it's going to charge you a 0.04 or 0.05 SOL fee to open up the position. But when you close the position, you get most of that back. And if you add to the position over time, you don't have to keep paying that fee. Okay, so I've now loaned out 1.5 BSOL to the Kamino Finance platform. And already now, this is going to qualify us for the Kamino airdrop. However, if we borrow some assets against that BSOL, it's actually going to increase our qualifications because we'll get more points for Kamino, and that will increase the amount of the Kamino airdrop. And anyways, we want to borrow some against it for the next few steps. Now, this is where you need to decide if you want to go full degen or if you just want to cut the strategy short and move to the final stage. Because these are the options. Now we can either borrow JITO SOL against the BSOL and then deposit it in this super high yield liquidity pool, and that's the final step. Or if you want to take this to the next level, we can borrow Marinade SOL or MSOL against the BSOL, then take the MSOL to MarginFi, loan it out, and then borrow JITO SOL on MarginFi, bring that back to Kamino, and use that in the liquidity pool. So I'll do the second version, the max degen one, just to show you all of the steps. But every time you borrow against a piece of collateral and then use the amount you borrowed to add collateral to another platform and borrow more, it increases the layers of risk. And if there's ever a black swan event where some of these tokens like BSOL depeg from the actual value of Solana, then that could create cascading liquidation. So it does add risk. And I do not recommend borrowing the maximum amount that you are technically allowed to by the platform. I feel like you want to be a little bit safer than that. So I'm going to borrow MSOL against my BSOL. So I need to select the asset down here, click on the borrow button, and now I can select the amount. Now the maximum that it would allow me to borrow against the value of the collateral that I have is 0.5, but I'm going to be a little bit more conservative and only borrow 0.4. So now I'm gonna hit borrow MSOL and confirm this transaction in my wallet. And now the position has opened up here on Kamino. I can see the amount that I've borrowed. And if I open up my Phantom wallet, I should be able to see the MSOL token right there. Now, this is a very important point, and remember this, when you go to pay this loan back, you aren't just gonna be paying back 0.4 MSOL, you owe interest. So the APY on this one at least is super low at 0.76%. But even now, if I clicked here and went to repay, I do not have enough tokens. Why is that? Because it automatically starts accruing interest from the moment that you take out the loan. So for me to actually repay this loan now, I would need to swap into at least a little bit more MSOL. And the longer that I keep this loan open, the more that I'm going to need to be able to repay it. So make sure that if you're doing this strategy, you don't want to be down to your last penny at the end of it, because if you do so, you won't be able to unwind your positions. So you need to be careful with that. And if I want to repay this Marinade SOL loan right now, I would need to swap into a tiny bit more MSOL than what I currently have. But even if I just swapped a tiny amount like this, now I have a little bit more MSOL in my wallet than what I borrowed. And so if I go to repay the loan, now I would actually be able to do it. So that's something to be aware of. Make sure that you do have enough to cover the interest that starts accruing as soon as you open the position. Okay, so now that we have MSOL, the next step to hit all of these different airdrops is to go over to MarginFi. And let's actually just repay this USDT loan that I have open just to keep the health of my account as good as possible. So I'm gonna hit repay here and confirm that transaction. So now I'm starting from a blank slate here. I don't have any borrow position, but what I wanna do first is lend out the MSOL. So I'm going to go to the lend tab on MarginFi, select MSOL, and I'm going to lend out the full amount that I have in my wallet, hit supply, and confirm this transaction. Okay, so that was a success, and now I can borrow against all of these other positions, actually, some JITO SOL for the final step of this. So I need to go to the borrow tab on MarginFi and select JITO SOL and hit borrow. Now the maximum amount that it will allow me to borrow is 0.96, but I don't want to borrow even close to that. So let's just say I'm going to borrow 0.5 JITO SOL. I'll hit borrow and confirm this transaction. And by the way, while this is confirming, here I should say the reason why it's okay to borrow MSOL against BSOL against JITO SOL is that they're all essentially the same thing. It's a liquid staking Solana token, and The risk is that they would depeg in the event of a black swan event, but they won't actually change that much in value relative to each other, so it really decreases the risk of liquidation. So looping, lending, and borrowing with these types of tokens is a lot safer than if you were borrowing, say, USDT against a cryptocurrency that has a lot of changes in value. Okay, anyways, I have now opened up a JITO position, and I'm going to take the JITO that I have in my wallet back to Kamino, and I'm going to go to the liquidity page here, and we want to add liquidity. Now there's two pools that I recommend adding liquidity to right now. There's the JITO and SOL pool, which is offering a yield of 12.3%. And this is boosted with JITO token rewards. And this is how we're getting that fifth and final airdrop now, is that for a limited time, since the JITO token is new, they're actually boosting rewards on liquidity for these particular pools. So JITO and SOL, or JITO and the JITO token itself. Now this one, the JITO and JITO token APY is 140%. And this is a riskier liquidity pool to deposit into because the value of these two assets are not nearly as closely linked as the value of JITO and SOL. And as you can see in the info and risk section, this vault can be unprofitable when the volatile assets diverge in price. Since these assets are not correlated like BSOL and MSOL and JITO are, there are additional risks with this. And that's why the yield is boosted so much higher. You're getting paid a lot more for assuming the higher level of risk. Definitely do your own research and decide which one of these you're more comfortable depositing into. However, if we're comfortable with this pool, the APY and the incentives in the JITO token are quite nice. So I'm going to go ahead and hit deposit here. Anyways, if you want to make a deposit into this pool, you can select to either deposit both assets if you have both, or a single asset deposit, which obviously we're going to do single asset because I just have JITO. Now, when you make a deposit of a single asset like JITO, it's actually going to split the liquidity that you provide into both of the assets proportionally to the amount of each asset that is currently held within the pool. And since we are using borrowed JITO for this, we do need to be careful because if we end up with a bunch of the JITO token itself, if the price drastically diverges from where it currently is, then we won't be able to take the JITO back and repay it on MarginFi unless we buy new JITO. Anyways, I feel like I have explained the risks, and at this point, if you are comfortable making a deposit, you simply hit deposit and stake and confirm a final transaction in your wallet. And it's going to charge you a small fee in SOL as well to do this. And then if you hit on the My Position tab, you'll be able to see the position, and you can see that it's automatically split my assets into JITO token and JITO according to the proportions of those assets that are currently in the pool. But we are earning these incentives and we are earning the JITO token over time for keeping this position open. Now, please do monitor, especially this liquidity position, because if you feel like you won't be able to pull out enough JITO to return to MarginFi, pay back that loan, and unwind this full leverage position that we've opened up here, then you could end up losing everything that you put into this strategy, which obviously won't be worth getting whatever airdrops that you get. But as long as this stays healthy and all of your other positions stay healthy on MarginFi and Kamino, then let's recap what we've got here, because we're getting a MarginFi airdrop for lending and borrowing on MarginFi. We're getting a Kamino airdrop for lending and borrowing and providing liquidity on Kamino. We're getting incentives in the JITO token, which I'm calling a pseudo airdrop. And then we're also getting the Solblaze airdrop for staking with Solblaze, and we're getting a Stake City airdrop for directing our BSOL towards the Stake City validator. So that is 5-in-1 if you follow this max degen strategy. And if you remove the additional layer of leverage with MarginFi, that's still a 4-for-1. So hopefully you found this airdrop tutorial helpful. I think this strategy will definitely be a lucrative one as long as you know how to manage these positions carefully and make sure that you don't take on too much risk. Good luck out there, and always please do your own research before doing anything like this.